Hi, great. Today we start new chapter 16, more functions. Our lesson is inverse function, but before we start the lesson, we have to take revision or introduction for the new lesson. Starting point. Is each relation a function? Right, yes or no? If we look into this order pairs, this mean function not this 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2. We found here the values of x here different. So this, yes. We found here 2, 2, 2, 2. We found the values of x here repeated, the same. So this not relation function or not function. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's yes, because the element of x is changing or different, so we have function. What the inverse operation of each? Adding, okay, subtracting, squaring, square root, dividing, times, multiply. Remember, square mean power 2, square root. Does each graph represent a function? To know, imagine I told you this before, this whole thing, we take it before together. If we want to know this function not, we imagine we have a vertical line test. Imagine you have a line vertical. If we cut this shape in any place here, in one point there's a function. If we cut in many points or 2 points or more than 1 point, so we have something not function. So if we make vertical line here or here, any place we'll cut this curve at 1 point. So this, yes. If we cut here, yes, here, yes. But if we cut here, this my place here, I found I cut this line in many or infinite number of points. So this, no. If we make a vertical line here, any place, so this will be yes, this function, but this no. Because if we cut this line, we will cut in many points. Here 1 point, here any place will give you 1 point. Now how to evaluate this one? The square root of 3 power 2 plus 4 power 2, we have order. We have to remember it. We start with the power 2 first, then plus, then square root. If you remember my order in any operation, bracket, then power, then times or divide, then plus or minus, finally we make the square root. So we have to start with power 2, then plus, then square root. So 3 power 2, 9, plus 4 power 2, 16. So 16 plus 9, 25. Square root of 25, 5. Here, the square root, we have to multiply this by itself 2 times, or with easy way, I told you, if we have power 2 and square root cancel each other. So the remainder, this number. So this is my answer. The same with inverse. Here's the square root down power 2. Here's the square root and up power 2. In the same thing, we have to cancel this together, or root 3 times root 3 is 3. Now the absolute of 5 minus 17. So 5 minus 17 is negative 12, but the absolute make it positive 12. Here, this gives you 5, so 17 minus 5 is 12. Here, we make this operation first, the absolute first. 5 minus 7, 2. Negative 2, so the absolute value make it as 2. So 17 plus 2 is 19. This is my revision. Something we have to note here in this lesson. We have something called inverse function. How to bring the inverse function? To make the inverse function, we have to rewrite the function and equation. Make it as equation like this. I give you function like this. Okay? To make it as inverse, we have to switch. Remember, f of x is y. F of x is y. So if this y equals 2x. So if we want to make reflex, I have to change y and x together. Then I make it the equation. We will see this together, inshallah, after a few minutes from now, a few seconds, whatever. So this is the way we switch x and y. Let's go to the next place. This by starting. How do you find the inverse of set of order pairs and inverse symbol function? So I have to put the relation in form equation and switch the x and y. X and y, we switch to the y and x. Let's see the first example. Find the inverse of the relation. Is the relation as a function? When we finish, we have a function or not? the inverse of the relation, a function. Let's see this, page 660. This is my example 2, -1, 3, 0, 4, 1. So this is my order pair, first order pair. So we can write it as this 4, 2, -1, 3, 0, 4, 1. So this is my relation. This is a relation function because 2, 3, 4. So we have a relation here. So this relation is function because the values of x are different, like the introduction. Now we're going to make the inverse. So to write the inverse, we switch. So will be -1, 2, 0, 3, 1, 4. Is still function. So -1, 0, 1. So I think this creates. So the inverse also function because the values of x are the same. So an inverse function undoes the original function here. So we have the notation for the inverse function this form. So if I switch or change f of x change to this form, f of x inverse, f -1. Okay. So now we have the values for the original one, -1, 2. So this my values for y. So if we have 2, my y is -1, mean f of x. If we have 3, my y is 0. If we have 4, my value here will be 1. But if we switch, mean the inverse will be the opposite. So my x -1. So this will be x and this will be y. This is my inverse. To represent it, we will have something here. The blue points here meaning the original one. If we take -1, 2, -1, 2, and 0, 3, and 1, 4, this is my original one. But the inverse one here, this my red points here give me the inverse function. And between them, y equal x mean this the inverse. I switch x with y. So we have here function here and function here. So I think this is easy, right? So the vertical line test would confirm that the original relation and its inverse are both function or not. So if I have line here, if you imagine you have line here, if you make vertical line, we will have function with this, and if we have a line here, we have a function with this also. Okay. Now we're going to example 2. Find the inverse of f of x, x plus 3. Provide the inverse by graphing both lines. Let's see this example. Write the original function, mean this one, as this form y. I switch or change f of x as y to remember f of x is y. So we have to make the inverse now. To make the inverse, I told you to switch x and y. So y come here and x come here. So it will be this 4. Now I have to make my equation. So I have to make it y equal or f of x equal. You remember my equation, f of x equals something. This is my function. So the function is supposed to be y equal. So I have to put this in the other side, or -3 minus 3. So this will be as this form. So I can switch or change the form or write it with the other one, symmetrical form. So I make it like f of x, I change y now because it's my inverse. F -1 mean the inverse of function equals x minus 3. So this is the new function. This is the original function. This the new function now. So we have to represent it now. If I put any numbers here, like 0 will be 0, 3. Make it as 0 with this function. This is the blue one. So 0 and here 3. If I make it here, so this is, if I put x as 0, y will be 3. So 0, 3. If I put it here with any number, we'll have this point. If I put it as 0, so this will be -3. If I put this 0, this will be this point. If I put any number, like here, I put just with 0 with x and 0 with a y. The same here, I can put it with 0 with x and y. So if I put a 0 here, so the inverse will be, mean the new y will be -3. And the other one, if I put y here 0, this will be 3. So will be 3. So this my original and this my inverse. If I make vertical line, all of them will be also functions. So this is my way. Now we're going to another example. Find the inverse of f of x, x power 2. So we have a special case here. Graph f of x will have something. You remember if we make graph for this, we have curve. My curve is open to up or down, upward or downward. You remember if I have my leading coefficient here is positive, so I have upward like you. And because nothing around x bar 2, so will be from the origin point. Okay, remember, will be my curve will be as u from the origin point. But I want to find the inverse, so I have to write my original function y equal x bar 2 f of x and make it y again. Remember, so I have to switch. Here I will put y, here I will put x, like this. So I switch the places. But now I need to find the function not f bar 2, not y bar 2, it's just y. To find or make the inverse of y bar 2. Remember, I told you that inverse of squaring is square root. So I have to make the square root of both sides. And the square root, I told you, square, so you have to put two signs, positive and negative, like this. So the square root of this cancels together, you remember in my introduction, will be y, and this will be positive or negative square root of x. To represent this, remember, this means something for you. I told you this with this one, u with my origin point, and my y-axis will be between, but this the inverse. With my x-axis will be the symmetry line, like this. So this my original, and this, if I switch my x here, because here my x here will be my symmetrical line, so will be like this. In this case, my inverse will be here. So the inverse with this one, my symmetry here y, here my symmetry is x-axis. Okay, remember this again because this is very important. Now we're going to another example. We have many points here, about 4 here, and this my original point. So I want to graph it. This first is the relation function. Yes, I have to check 6, 3, negative 3, negative 6. I think this function because this values of x are different. Write the inverse of relation and graph it. So I have to make the inverse. So I have to switch y with x, x with y. Now we're going to what is the domain of the original. The domain is the values of x here. Okay, and the range mean the values of y. So let's make it from the beginning. Yes, it's passing the vertical test. If I make curve, we'll see the curve after a few minutes. When I finish this, then I have to make the inverse. I have to switch. Then I have to discover this function or not. Yes, this function I have to check because this negative 4, negative 2, 2, 4. So this vertical test will give me the answer now. So the domain for me, all the values for x, like I told you from while, range is my second term here, means negative 4, negative 2, 2, and so on. So now the domain and range for the inverse, the domain will be negative 4, negative 2, 2, 4, and my range, the second term y here, this my range. So this my place here, so this my function. Here if I make vertical test, we'll have here something as function. Now another thing, I have this function is linear, it's function. So I told you this function is f of x. You discover this before we start. Graph the function and its inverse. So this my function. My inverse, I switch this together like this. Okay? But I have to put y alone. This is my deal to me. The inverse, f of x means y alone. So I have to make it y alone like the original. So I have to put this on the other side. Mean I divide both terms by 3. Will be like this. Okay? We can write it as 1/3 x. It's the same. Okay? So we can write it like this with 1/3 x. So this because it's the inverse, I make it as f negative 1 like this. This is the inverse of function. Now, is the inverse function yes or not? I have to know. So if I represent or describe here this vertical line, this my vertical line, so we have now if we put here as 0 or any number, you change this and you make your line. If you make the other line, all of them will be as functions. So the line is a reflection of the other at y equal x. Here, y equal x here. Okay, so this is your inverse. Now we're going to 663 with another function. Did you see this function? Find the inverse. is the inverse function. So we find the inverse, then we discover the function not. If yes, use the function notation to write the inverse, mean -1, f of -1. Write the original, so we write the original. This is my original here. I will change this as y to complete my equation. Then I switch, so I switch this together here and here. I make it like this. Then anything around y I put on the other side. So -2, -2. Divide by -2, divide by -2. So I make it -2 both sides because of this. Then I will divide by -2. This is the second step. Divide by -2 will be y. Divide by -2 will be like this. I switch now. I put now this as f of -1 will be like this. Okay. So this is a function. If I check, if I found this is a function. 3x minus 7. I will put this as y like this. Y equals 3x. This is the original. I switch x and y. Put y here and x here. Then I make add 7 for both sides to cancel this. So this will be 0, 3y. This will be 3y. Then I divide by 3. So this my final form. X over 3, 7 over 3. We can write it like this form or like this form. But I have to change this because this is my inverse and write it like this. Okay? I think it's easy to make the inverse for any function. Now we're going to find the inverse for this function. F of x equal -1 over 4x plus 1. I have to check this inverse function or not. So I have to write it the original, function, then I switch. So this is my original function. I switch x and y together like this. Then I have to put anything next to y to the other side or with inverse sign. So I put the inverse of +1 to the other side with -1. So -1, both sides. Then I multiply here, or I have another way. I told you before, if we have fraction, multiply by the inverse. So I multiply by -4 because -4 over 1. Okay. So this will be here -4. I distribute this will be -4x. Negative will be +4, and then will be +y. But this my inverse function. So I write it. I switch this with this. So this is my inverse function, and this my graph. If I put, you can with this function put any 2 points, put as 0 by any number. Put this 0 one time will be 0, 1, 0, 1. So 0, 1. So this is the first function, f of x. And this, if I put here the same 0 here, so this my 0 and 4. So 0 here. So 0, 4, if I switch here with x as 0 will be 4. So 0, 4, this is my second function. This means the inverse function, this f of -1. So this one is this one. Okay, I think it's clear. Let's practice with this. Find the inverse for each function. If yes, make the inverse. So this 1, 0, 0, 1, -1, 0. Now we switch. So this is my inverse. So the inverse is not function because if you find here 0, 1, 0, so the 0 is repeated in the inverse. So this is not function. So according to your values, your result, you discover this function or not. So I have to switch this as y. I switch here y and here x. So my values here. So he needs here because the values of x is 0 is 2 values here. This the 0 and 0, this is the meaning. We have 2 values for y here. So y here -1 and 1. So we have here to make the same for this one, yes, because mine here, if I put it on the other side, this is, if you imagine, if you make your steps, so this will be x 3y -1 will be +1. So here x here, so will be x plus 1 because the -1 become +1, and divide by 3 will be like this. So this is the inverse. The same, you make it here and you make it here. Check your answer. If you have any problem, you can send to me to explain it for you, or make one lesson as Zoom to explain anything difficult for you in this part. Okay. Now we're going to many examples. Here we have find the inverse. It's the same way. We put x here and y here and switch. So this all is the same. I think everything is clear. You have to make the steps with y and x switch. This will be in the other side, will be 2 over 3. So this will be easy if you're dealing with this example. I give you the answers for practice alone and try to make the same examples alone. If you have any difficulty to reach to this answer, you have to send to me and tell me the problem you were. Okay, we finished our lesson. Now you have to make your homework in your workbook, page 161, all of it, and page 162, but from 8 till 12. Okay, so you have to make your homework. I will receive. I didn't see any old homework. Remember to send it for me, please. Okay, see you the next lesson, inshallah. Will be in Sunday, but also video. If you need anything, tell me before it to make Zoom lesson. Bye bye.